A soldier's vow is tested by Mafia vengeance. The Veterans Charity event was held beneath the imposing skylights of a modernist building, casting shards of light onto the polished marble floor that stretched out like a reflective lake between clusters of formally dressed attendees. The air was a murmur of clinking glasses, distant laughter, and the gentle hum of a jazz band that floated above the soft din.
Alex Carter stood near the entrance, his military me-style jacket at odds with the elegant suits that surrounded him.
The blazer was a comfort from his past life, something solid in a world that felt perpetually unstable. He clutched his drink, the chilled surface a stark contrast to the growing heat in his cheeks as he watched the room.
Near the podium, several men gathered, exuding the sort of self-assuredness that comes with untarnished success.
Their perfect smiles sparkled beneath the chandelier's glow as they charmed the crowd with practiced ease.
Alex was momentarily drawn to their circle, feeling the invisible magnetic pull of acceptance. But as he approached, snippets of their conversation pierced through the crowded air, sharp and unwelcoming.
"So, what do you do now, Alex?"
One of them, a man with a silver tie and a smooth baritone, asked casually between sips of champagne.
Alex hesitated, swallowing the urge to turn away.
"Looking for work," he replied, keeping his tone neutral.
"Aren't our veterans showered with opportunities these days?"
Another chimed in, a smile curving his lips but never reaching his eyes.
Laughter rippled through the group, an undercurrent of mockery thinly veiled beneath their words, echoing in the space between polished walls and the ceiling that seemed to loom ever higher.
The jab hit its mark, collateral from a conversation he hadn't intended to continue.
His grip on the glass tightened, the band's melancholic notes suddenly stark and intimate.
Alex's gaze dropped to the floor, catching the reflection of scattered confetti swirled with the soles of shoes, mirroring the storm that raged within, a reminder of paths less straightforward.
"You know, there's always room in security," someone quipped, attempting levity but revealing ignorance.
A forced smile tugged at Alex's lips, caught somewhere between resignation and defiance as he murmured, "Thanks, I'll think about it." Inside, he bore the weight of obligations not fully understood by those who had not worn his boots. He turned away, the decorum of his retreat masked by a facade of assumed indifference, moving through the crowd like a specter passing among the living. He reached the outer ring of the gathering, the laughter and conversation receding behind him, muted by the heavy beat of his own pulse. As Alex exited to the terrace, the cityscape sprawled beneath him in its twilight grandeur, an ocean of lights glimmering against the encroaching night. Here, the air was cool, biting against the warmth on his skin, providing a momentary balm for the tangled emotions within. He reached into his pocket, fingers curling around the dog tags that jingled softly with the movement. The metal was cool and reassuring, a talisman of duty, and a promise made to someone he held dear. His gaze drifted across the horizon, pondering the expanse of the city, each light a pulse of life, each shadow a mystery to unravel. With that distant view in front of him, Alex found neither comfort nor resolution, just a stubborn silence that enveloped the atmosphere, holding within it the whisper of reasons why he had returned. Alex walked the familiar path back home, the city's pulse a rhythmic hum beneath his worn boots. Each step was accompanied by the stark reflection of himself in the polished glass facades, distorting into a tapestry of doubt. The echo of laughter from the charity event still lingered, punctuated by echoes of his own inadequacy. The streets, bathed in muted neon, glowed eerily under the streetlights, frozen glare, casting shadows that danced in time with his thoughts. New York City was a place of stark contrasts. The glitzy cruelty of the charity event and the grim tenacity of the streets mirrored his own internal dichotomy. His apartment loomed ahead, a sanctuary where the walls absorbed his turmoil. As the door creaked open, Max, his golden retriever, greeted him with a familiar exuberance, his tail wagging furiously. With a heavy heart, Alex rubbed Max's head, the dog's unwavering loyalty a comfort that words failed to provide. "Hey, buddy," he murmured, succumbing to the warmth of companionship. He let himself sink onto the couch, the room dark save for the flickering shadows from the streetlight playing across the walls. His eyes traced the contours of the dog tags resting on his coffee table, symbols of promises spoken and duties unfulfilled. Memories weighed heavy, the promise he made to his sister, a sacred oath, and a constant reminder of responsibilities that now seemed out of reach. He ran a hand through his hair, the motion both weariness and resolve. The soldier in him itched for purpose, even as doubts crowded his thoughts. A solitary figure amid a bustling metropolis, he felt the tides of change pressing against him. Silence enveloped the room, a blank canvas onto which his thoughts spilled, mixing with the ambient noise of the city beyond his windows. He knew he needed a plan. Perhaps it was that necessity which sparked an ember of determination. Max laid his head on Alex's knee, offering silent solidarity. "We'll figure this out," Alex whispered, conviction slicing through the static of uncertainty. His mind drifted to the city's underbelly, a network of connections he had distanced himself from upon returning, yet found himself inexorably drawn back to.
It was here, amidst the forgotten alleys and whispered deals, that his next decision took root. As the moon painted arcs across the sky, the weight on Alex's shoulders began to shift, a whisper of hope entwined with shadow, hinting that within the city's labyrinth, answers might yet be found close to home, hinting at the turbulence soon to be unraveled.
When Alex returned to his apartment, the ambiance had shifted from the cold mockery of the streets to the stillness of four walls that had become both his refuge and adversary. Quiet surrounded him, occasionally interrupted by distant horns and the muted dialogue of the city thrumming below. The sharp siren of the kettle pulling towards a boil broke the silence, the steam rising in visible plumes, a tangible reminder of warmth, safety, and moments forgotten. He moved from counter to living room, his gaze swept over the coffee table, now littered with remnants of yesterday's frustrations and today's revelations. Max, vigilant and steadfast, lay beside the couch, watching Alex with a solemnity only a loyal companion could muster. There was something soft in those canine eyes, coaxing the soldier forward into the fray of personal battles yet unresolved. His sister's picture sat on the shelf, a frozen smile that reminded Alex of lighter days and intertwined promises. Inhaling slowly, he approached the desk. Hidden beneath old bills and innocuous mail, an envelope caught his eye, its ivory paper stark against the mundane. With deliberate care he opened it, fear mingling with obligation, a cocktail neither of fire nor of ice, but somewhere engulfed in between. Inked upon the page in elegant curves were words that carried a chilling weight. Information that his sister was enmeshed with a man named Lorenzo, a man whose name clunked like a warning bell weighted with family history and whispered threats. Blood rushed through his ears, drowning out the city's sounds, as the story of Lorenzo Voss reignited memories of tales told in whispers between his parents. A name festooned with darkness, an enigma wrapped in criminal whisper, siren call that quaked the very ground Alex stood upon. He set the letter down, feeling the shift within, a dismantling of paths now converging with his own, like a map unfurling over his life, with lines still to be drawn. Alex glanced at the dog tags lying on the table, symbols of duty and personal truths begging realization. The promise he had made to his sister loomed larger now, infused with urgency and a new sense of purpose. Whatever pain or fear he held bore down heavily, yet a burgeoning sense of clarity was fighting to surface. In the subtle reflection on the darkened window, the vibrant cityscape emerged, teeming with potential. Alex straightened, shoulders set with resolve born anew, knowing the path he needed to tread would lead him deep into the underbelly shadowed by his sister's connection. Max rose beside him, a reminder of loyalty uncompromised. Together they stood upon the threshold that separated inaction from the journey now determined, taking the first step into the night as echoes of the city beckoned its call. The night air was thick with the unspoken dreams and whispered fears of New York City, the concrete jungle where anonymity and notoriety intertwined. Alex found himself navigating these dualities, his footsteps echoing through damp alleyways, alleys cast in the muted glow of distant neon signs, each step a measured beat in a city that thrummed with its own pulse. This was the underworld he had sought, the confession to the letters card game of shadows and silk, where secrets laundered themselves in the taint of dimly lit bars and the whereabouts of marked men. Here, uncertain motivations wore the shroud of possible truths, lies tempered by the raw bite of whiskey-soaked revelations. Alex entered a nondescript bar this side of midnight, the door whispering shut behind him to reveal an atmosphere saturated with smoke and the buzz of conversation subdued to murmur. The patrons sat hunched over their drinks, small islands of solitude amid seas of potential deceit. He blinked through the shadowed veil, seeking the one man who might hold the map to his fragmented concerns. Amidst the dimly pool-lit table, the bartender's eyes met his with the acknowledgement of shared history and mutual caution. A scar on the bridge of his nose, speckled with the debris of past confrontations, glimmered in the fractured light, a testament to paths crossed before Alex had sought redemption beyond the call of duty. "Hey," Alex greeted, keeping his voice devoid of inflection. "Looking for some information?" The bartender wiped a glass with a practiced nonchalance, his movements fluid and deliberate. "Depends on what you're selling. And who's buying?" Alex produced a small token, a military coin, polished to perfection yet inscribed with implications only the experienced eye might read. "Heard some things about a guy named Lorenzo."
The bartender paused, setting the glass down with a studied patience, his eyes drilling into Alex with a weight that others might flinch from, but not a soldier forged amidst the chaos of war. "Lorenzo?" The bartender's voice was a razor's edge wrapped in velvet. "He's not the kind of shadow you want to chase." Despite the warning cloaked in wisdom, Alex remained steadfast, the dog tags beneath his shirt pressing decisions upon his skin, mechanical whispers of promises still to keep.
"It's important," Alex urged, determination lacing his words.
"Personal." The tension wove through the smoky aura, a tapestry of possibilities hanging heavy in the air that belonged as much to uncertainty as to faith. The bartender's gaze flitted past Alex, as if exploring realms known and unknown.
"I might know someone," he conceded, the undertones of his admission part of the game of survival played here.
"A lead. Tell you what, come back tomorrow. I'll see what drifts downriver." Alex nodded, accepting the vague promise steeped in danger, the foothold to his pursuit sharpened by necessity. Leaving the bar behind, he stepped into the embrace of the city nightly, to have its arms bind tightly around him. The world continued to spin, fraught with questions unanswered, as Alex carved his way through the unfolding maze of night.
The neon lights of New York cast an eerie luminescence overhead, their reflective promises, fragments refracted on wet sidewalks glistening with stories unspoken. Somewhere in the electric pulse of the city, amid shadows tangled with humanity, Alex walked a path broken yet illuminated, poised at the threshold to crossroads shadowed by Lorenzo's reach. Night draped itself over the city, cold blue and gray shadows cast against the worn brick and concrete jungles. Alex's heart pumped in a rhythmic beat as he replayed the bartender's cryptic promise, each step recalibrating his resolve against the danger he instinctively knew was lying in wait. The thin trail of leads he had begun to pull unraveled like frayed string, and he realized how tangled they were with his sister's fate. The city's heartbeat quickened at night, the neon signs pulsating like signals, keeping time with the secrets whispered through alleyways. Outside a seedy club notorious for its clandestine gatherings, Alex lingered in the muffled dark, the light from a flickering sign washing over him in rhythmic waves. His breath made clouds in the cold air, a visible part of himself cast out to vanish into the ether. It reminded him of duty, of the promises spoken into the night, transient yet loaded with intent. One of Lorenzo's men stepped into the street, the orange glow of his cigarette briefly illuminating eyes that were searching, calculating. Alex's hard gaze drank in every detail, noting the set of his jaw, the slight bulge of a concealed handgun beneath his coat, a predator in his territory. As Alex drew closer, a hand caught his arm. "A stranger," a flash of unexpected contact. "Careful, soldier," a voice rasped from the shadows, both a warning and an invite. He turned to find a woman leaning against a doorway, her eyes sharp, glinting with a knowingness that struck a chord of recognition, though Alex couldn't place it. "Word gets out about your family's past," she said, her voice low like silk. "You sure you want to dance with ghosts?" Alex felt the words like a spark inflaming his determination. "I'm not here to dance," he replied fiercely, his inner conflict fueling his words. "My sister's involved. I need to find a way to get her out." There was silence, an unspoken acknowledgement between them, as if she weighed his sincerity, deliberation playing out in the brief pause. In her eyes he saw something soften, a flicker of understanding graciously given. "Talk to Eddie." She nodded towards an alley, where shadows nested like secrets waiting to unfold. "He owes me a favor, and he knows more than he lets on." Every step Alex took felt imbued with the duality of courage and fear, his mission for clarity tempered by risk. The alley loomed, narrow, and promise held aside the quiet thread of violence, of intentions cloaked in darkness. There was a flicker of flame as the stranger lit up a cigarette, the gesture a parting punctuation to their encounter. "Lorenzo doesn't shy from blood." "Neither do I," Alex retorted, channeling the steadiness he'd earned in another lifetime to mask the questions crowding his consciousness. He pushed forward, shadows weaving around him as the city continued its restless whisper, each whisper telling stories he had yet to fully comprehend. But as he neared the end of the alley, a sound behind him, a snap of a twig or a footfall, sent a jolt of electricity surging through, adrenaline sharpening his instincts in the moments before impending revelation. The world around him stilled, Alex poised on the precipice of action, the implications of this encounter drawing tight around his heart. Alex followed the hushed pulse of the alleyways until he reached a secluded door marked with years of neglect. There was a distinct chill in the air, accentuated by the soft rumble of distant traffic and the occasional shout echoing through the cavernous streets. Alex paused, his senses on high alert, every part of him attuned to the unyielding tension that emanated from the city's underbelly. He knocked, and the door opened to reveal Eddie Majid, wiry man whose eyes gleamed with the cunning of a life lived between shadows and light. Eddie's reputation as a purveyor of information was renowned, and tonight his presence was as foreboding as the dark depths Alex had entered. "You're the soldier," Eddie greeted, his voice heavy with cigarettes and time. "Just a man looking for answers," Alex replied, the desperation in his words a thread through the fabric of the room's tight silence. Eddie gestured for Alex to follow, leading him through a dimly lit passage where stories lingered in every corner. Each step was a descent into a world Alex had always skirted, the shadows pulling him into an embrace filled with both promise and peril. They arrived in a cramped back room, its air thick with the scent of decay, where a single hanging light flickered intermittently, casting an uneasy glow. Alex's gaze fell upon a worn sheet of paper on the table, inscribed with names and connections that mapped the fragile alliances broadcasting through the city. "Lorenzo's got your sister," Eddie revealed without restraint, cutting through Alex's subterfuge. "She's the linchpin in his game." The words hit Alex with the force of a thunderclap, reverberating through him with a resounding clarity. He struggled to mask the instinctive surge of protectiveness, anger burning hot and fierce behind his eyes. "Why?" Alex's voice wavered between rage and disbelief. Eddie shrugged, lighting a cigarette with casual indifference. "You've made enemies, Carter. Your family's got history. Voss wants leverage. And she's it. For now." The room fell silent save for the soft exhale of smoke that drifted upward, curling like tendrils of fate wrapping around unforgiving choices. The weight of unfulfilled duty draped over Alex, his dog tags a reminder of promises that bore more than they ought. There was a raw edge to the revelation, peeling back layers of resolve and revealing the rawness of his moral quandary. Alex stood at a precipice, where love and loyalty tangled inextricably with the allure and danger of darkness. Understanding dawned harshly. His sister's safety lay not just in reconnecting with her, but in confronting the labyrinthine threads of power woven through Lorenzo's empire. He needed more than brute force. A strategy was imperative. As Alex prepared to leave, one question lingered, etched with the gravity of its implications. Does she love him? Eddie paused, a humorless smile lifting his lips as he pocketed the cigarette. Love in Voss's world isn't the fairy tale kind, soldier. It's survival, dressed up in borrowed dreams. Those words clung to Alex, a chilling echo as he stepped back into the cold embrace of the city night. With the knowledge of his sister's precarious entanglement, a path unfurled before him strewn with peril, but illuminated now with a singular resolve to rescue her not just from Lorenzo, but from the choice she believed she faced. The sky hung over New York, a canopy of deep steel blue, heavy with the promise of rain that never seemed to come. Alex made his way through the city streets, feeling as if the weather mirrored his own turmoil, an oppressive weight pressing down with each step toward his sister's apartment. He had learned the truth, the brutal simplicity of it clawing at his insides. His sister was with Lorenzo, caught in a web of charm and danger that threatened to suffocate them both. The realization had crash-landed in his chest, shattering any illusions of simple extraction or reasoned discourse. By the time he reached the door of her apartment building, the cold seeped through his clothing, a chilling prelude to what he knew would be a tumultuous encounter. As he ascended the stairs, each footfall echoed against bare walls, the sound vibrating through his bones like the relentless tick of a metronome counting down. Staring at the plain wood of her door, Alex took a deep breath before knocking, the dog tags resting against his heart, a weight of reminder, duty, love, the promises made between siblings. The door opened to reveal his sister, her expression a mix of surprise and wariness, underlined by a defiant glow. Alex didn't need words. The mere sight of her, a person he'd sworn to protect, seemed to unravel any false pretense he held of control. "We need to talk," Alex said, the plea woven into the fabric of his voice faint, fraying at the edges. She stepped aside, a silent invitation but also a barricade he needed to push past. Inside, the apartment was dimly lit, shadows pooling in corners like threats whispered behind closed doors. The air was tense, moments stretching long between them as they danced around the precarious subject. "You've changed," she uttered, a quiet accusation shadowed by concern. "I'm trying to keep you safe," Alex replied, his gaze piercing through the shadows, seeking absolution. The tension crackled, every word weighty like anvils holding them to truths they barely could vocalize. His sister moved with an assuredness that wasn't there before, a confidence borrowed from dangerous depths. "He loves me, Alex," she declared, every word a wrecking ball against his beliefs. "He understands me." Desperation clawed at Alex's insides, turning his stomach to knots. "He's not who you think. He's dangerous, Sarah. I can't let you. What can you let me do?" She shot back, defensive fire in her eyes. "I'm not a child." Alex recoiled as if struck, the silence spreading like ink across the space between them. His resolve faltered, the certainties of battle strategies crumbling against the chaos love had fashioned. Her words hung between them, turning the promise he'd clung to into vapors. The ground beneath him felt unstable, a shifting quicksand of emotions pulling him down. "I'm staying," she repeated, the finality like an echo in a deserted cavern. Left with silence, Alex stumbled back into the hallway, his energy drained. A soldier retreated to the solitude of choices past redemption. Outside, the city hummed along, indifferent and vast, swallowing him in its unforgiving embrace. As the gray sky darkened further, the impending rain felt like the sole companion to the void burgeoning within Alex, the definitive collapse of hope, as isolated drops began their descent, each one splattering against his skin with an icy insistence, as if mocking their shared descent into uncertainty. The streets of New York had taken on a spectral quality, the usual vibrancy dulled beneath thick, low-hanging clouds that whispered promise of rain. Alex wandered their concrete veins, a solitary figure cut adrift from purpose. The cities hummed mere background noise to the storm raging inside him. Cold air clawed at his cheeks, shadows consuming the spaces between the harsh glow of street lamps. Each step felt heavier than the last, his body moving through instinct rather than intent. Around him the world continued its relentless pace, indifferent to the quiet devastation that clung to his frame. Alex's mind replayed the encounter with his sister, her defiant words looping in his thoughts, a refrain of rejection that echoed harshly in the silence he'd drawn around himself. It was as if something vital had been torn from his core, leaving a void that expanded with each passing moment. Stray memories of their childhood flitted through his mind amid the desolate wander, brief glimpses of laughter and warmth tainted now by the reality they found themselves in. He walked the path they'd once played along, the familiarity of it offering no comfort, only the reminder of a simpler time swallowed by shadows. Eventually, Alex found himself standing on a bridge overlooking the inky waters of the East River, the city skyline a jagged horizon silhouetted against the bruised sky. He leaned against the railing, its chill seeping through his fingers as he stared down into the restless currents below, each ripple a whisper of temptation to let go, to sink into its embrace. The dog tags around his neck clinked together softly, a dissonant melody that spoke of unfinished vows and hopes drowned beneath regret and helplessness. They were his comfort and his curse, their weight accentuating the emptiness within. From somewhere distant came the wail of a siren, its mournful cry winding through the cold night, fading into the distance yet leaving behind a lingering ache. The city seemed to draw in a breath, holding the silence around him, pressing down like an unseen hand. A pair of headlights flashed briefly out of the corner of his eye as a taxi rattled past, dispersing the shadows momentarily, before they reformed, tighter and more suffocating. The street lamps flickered above, struggling against the gloom. A torn advertisement flapped against a lamppost nearby, its edges whipping in the breeze, the image lost to time and exposure, much like his purpose felt now frayed, degraded, a crumbling relic of the past's promises. As the darkness stretched, Alex mounted an internal withdrawal from the light, cocooned within walls of self-imposed solitude where doubt festered. The sky bore down heavily upon him, as rain began its descent, gentle at first, then harder, needle-like, as if urging him to make a choice. He closed his eyes, the world reduced to the staccato rhythm of raindrops meeting earth, a symphony of elsewhere, and nevermore holding him at the brink of decision. Despite everything, the storm inside him swirled with relentless intensity, and his breath hitched with a steady pause before the precipice, the edge of something or nothing waiting to claim him. Alex, standing beneath the cold rain on the bridge, stared at the dark waters beneath, reflecting on his sister's words and their painful impact. The realization of her entanglement with Lorenzo left him hollow, struggling to find his purpose when all seemed lost. Alex had reached out to friends for support, only to push them away from fear and shame, leaving him alone in his struggle. As he stood, drenched and shivering, memories of shared laughter and warmth flooded back, further intensifying the chill within. With every chance at rescue slipping through his fingers, Alex felt the rush of despair threatening to consume him entirely. It was then, through the softly cascading drops, that a quiet voice emerged, chorda whispers beckoning from the depths of the past. Carter. He turned to see a familiar figure emerging from the mist, a face he hadn't seen since the heat of battle.
Riley, a fellow soldier and trusted companion from days gone by. Riley's presence awakened something dormant within Alexander Anchor, a reminder of camaraderie and trust forged amidst adversity.
"You look like you've seen better days," Riley said with a small smile, the shared understanding palpable through the rain. "You could say that," Alex replied, unable to suppress a guttural laugh despite himself. Riley stepped closer, offering solace warmed by shared history. "I heard you might be needing some help." They stood in the swaying light of the city, each a silhouette fringed in shadows but replete with the promise of hope. In Riley's eyes, Alex saw the flickering possibility of redemption and rescue intertwined. With renewed resolve, Alex accepted the lifeline thrown his way, understanding now that there was strength in unity, and allies still willing to fight alongside him. Together, clothed in the silent camaraderie of kindred spirits, they plunged into the storm that was both city and night, prepared to face the looming challenges with a newly ignited flame of determination. The city was awakening, a slow rising tide of light pushing back against the night. For Alex, the dawn was a silent ally, promising the renewal he desperately needed. The words of his former army buddy, Riley, echoed in his mind, a plan, an anchor pulling him back to purpose. He stood on the balcony of his small apartment, eyes tracing the horizon where the first hues of amber blurred into the gray of retreating night. There was a crispness to the air, purged by recent rain, imbued with an unspoken clarity. Below, the city stretched out, a monumental challenge daring him to rise. Max, his ever-faithful companion, nuzzled his leg, grounding Alex in the present. The dog's presence a reminder that he wasn't facing the world alone. With renewed composure, Alex grasped the dog tags that lay against his chest, his fingers brushing over the well-worn metal. In the streets of New York, where shadows once taunted him, he found himself striding with newfound resolve. Riley's plan had stayed with him. Simmeringa's secret recipe of strategy and hope. A military extraction at the heart of the Mafia's gala could turn the tables, freeing his sister from the clutches of Lorenzo. Meeting Riley at a secluded diner not far from the Hudson, Alex laid out the strategy, the conversation punctuated by the clatter of cups and the intermittent hiss of brewing coffee. "You realize it'd have to be a flawless operation," Riley said, voice low enough to match their risky discourse. Alex nodded, determination solidifying into a stone of certainty. There's no room for mistakes. Their camaraderie wrapped the conversation in a warm, familiar trust, warming a world that had for too long felt stark and unforgiving. As they scribbled ideas on napkins and mapped out their trajectory, Alex noticed a detail from the corner of his eye: an elderly man, quietly reading a newspaper, the headline ominous with financial dread. Yet somehow, the man emitted a calm aura, an acceptance of life's uncontrollable ebbs and flows. In that moment, Alex saw a reflection of his possible future, a life wherein the chaos was managed, not evaded, a life where balance could be found amid turbulence. After parting from Riley, Alex walked with purpose, past the illuminated display windows of Manhattan. Once daunting, the lights now seemed like beacons inviting him to chart his course. With every step, the cold blue tones around him shifted towards a tentative warmth, suggesting the first strokes of a brighter, redeemed reality. He returned to his apartment as the sounds of the city reached a crescendo, the hum of life marching forwards constant and reassuring. At the threshold, Alex paused, absorbing the complexity of his situation and the thin line he walked between danger and salvation. The plan was in motion, a fragile whisper, threaded through the myriad layers of desperation and bravery. Yet, as the city continued its rhythmic dance, Alex understood that change wasn't instantaneous. It required persistence, a slow burn, and the tension of steadfast commitment to the pieces slowly falling into place. The day of the gala came, wrapped in the whispers of winter's chill, a deceptive elegance masking the tension that filled the air. The venue, a grand old hotel brimming with history and opulence, stood like a sentinel over the city, its lights glittering like a crown amidst the shadows. Alex, dressed in a tuxedo borrowed from another time in his life, moved through the gathering twilight with assured steps. The weight of his resolve echoed in each stride, a rhythm that matched the heartbeat of the city, that buzzed with the promise of change. Inside the hotel, the grand ballroom was alive, with the hum of voices mingling over the soft strains of classical music. Crystal chandeliers threw refracted shards of light across the polished floors, casting a dance of brightness over the assemblage of New York's elite, and those who thrived in their shadows. Alex navigated the sea of opulence, his eyes honing in on Lorenzo Voss. The Mafia boss stood at the center of attention, his aura one of irresistible danger, charisma wrapped in a velvet glove concealing an iron fist. As Alex approached, the noise of the room faded to a muffled undertone, his focus narrowing until it encompassed only Voss's figure across the ballroom. "Mr. Carter," Lorenzo greeted with a smile that chilled more than it warmed.
"I didn't expect to see you here." The crowd ebbed around them, unwittingly encircling the impending confrontation, their laughter and conversation a masquerade for the tension simmering beneath the surface. "Surprises are part of life, aren't they?" Alex replied, his tone measured, eyes locking onto Lorenzo's with steely determination. Lorenzo's gaze held his, an unspoken challenge flickering in the depths of his dark eyes. "I suppose that depends on the surprise." The verbal dance was both a display of courage and a strategic maneuver, each man probing the other for weaknesses hidden beneath carefully constructed facades. But Alex felt something shift within him, a boldness that aligned with his renewed purpose. The city lights beyond the ballroom beckoned, a reminder of stories waiting to be rewritten by those daring enough to seize their own course. He leaned closer, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "She may be your pawn now, but she's my sister, and I intend to bring her home." Lorenzo's smile tinged his lips with a dangerous curve, a nod to the games played beneath the glittering surface of society's elegance. "And let's see how well you can play." The moment hung suspended, a tableau of silent understanding bathed in the fractured light of the ballroom, a harbinger of paths yet to collide in the shadows beyond. The night continued, as if on cue, the gala swirling around them, oblivious. But Alex felt the tremors of change rippling through him, a movement towards something deeper than vengeance, more potent than mere survival. As he turned, leaving Lorenzo in his wake, a single perfectly pristine leaf, released from an unseen rooftop by a gust of wind, spiraled downward, catching the light in a moment of poetic clarity, assuring Alex that the game was afoot, and his role had decidedly shifted from pawn to player in the high stakes of love and loyalty. As the gala swirled in decadence and danger around Alex, he felt each cell in his body aligning, driven by the singular purpose to save his sister. The ballroom, with its swirling silks and tinkling glasses, had become an arena for truth, a lavish veneer under which old scores were to be settled. His eyes traced the crowded space, finding his sister across the room, her gaze a blend of defiance and flickering doubt, framed by the shimmering dress she wore like a protective shell. It was then he saw in her eyes the tender fracture, a signal that she wasn't lost but caught in a mirage cast by promises of a love that lived in the shadows. Meanwhile, Lorenzo moved through the crowd, charisma and charm like a cloak concealing the steel beneath the sheen. Alex observed him from the periphery. Every stride Lorenzo took felt like a part before the wave of confrontation. As the evening unraveled, Alex maneuvered his way through the throng of tuxedos and evening gowns until he was face to face with Lorenzo. The lights dimmed slightly, the room's splendor muting as if pausing to foresee what would unfold. "Alex Carter." Lorenzo's voice was smooth a contradiction, fitting the man who lived by charisma and control. "I admire your tenacity. Truly, a brother's love is a powerful motivator." "It's not just love, Voss," Alex replied, his words steady and crystalline in their certainty. "It's loyalty. To my sister, to my family, and I'm here to correct wrongs of many kinds." A quiet descended, the partygoers oblivious of the tension charging the air between the two men, divided by history and circumstance. Lorenzo stepped closer, his voice dropping to match the intensity burning in his gaze. "Are you willing to gamble everything for family, Alex?" "No gamble," Alex answered, conviction solidifying in the timbre of his voice. "Just a promise, Mayfona, I am bound to keep." His sister, sensing the undercurrents of the imminent conflict, moved closer, tears glistening beneath the ambient glow. Her love for Lorenzo was tempestuous, but her loyalty to her brother was rooted deeper than any illusory promises. As Lorenzo and Alex stood poised for a confrontation, the symbolic weight of past grievances and future implications rested in their eyes, two lives intersecting at this fulcrum of reckoning. The room's tension maladjusted as Alex's sister finally interjected, taking a step from the shadows into the light that spilled between the two men. "Stop," she implored, her voice a chord struck between desperation and resolve. "This is insanity, no more." In that pivotal moment the ballroom felt suspended, time a mere spectator to the scene of unfolding clarity and relief. Her declaration was a break of chains, a cry for redemption piercing the opulence, resonating with the truth that bound them all. Lorenzo's gaze softened infinitesimally, the facade of his control wavering as he looked not at a rival but the humanity interwoven in those he deemed adversaries. When the silence returned, it was full not with animosity or threat, but with the potential for reconciliation, for change conceived in understanding. As the gala resumed its flow, renewed clarity suffused the air, lighting the path for Alex past the lavish veneer towards what lay beyond, unforeseen redemption balanced on the edge of love and choice. The first light of dawn crept softly across the city, washing New York in shades of pink. In the aftermath of the gala's upheaval, Alex stood on the rooftop of a downtown building, the city's sprawling skyline stretching before him like an endless canvas of possibility. The cool morning air brushed against his skin, a whispered promise of renewal and unhurried reflection. With hands clasped in front of him, he felt the dog tags rest lightly upon his chest, the metal cool upon his skin, a constant reminder of his commitments, and the grim determination that had driven him through shadows both literal and figurative. The tension that had wrapped itself around him like a second skin began to unwind, unraveling in the soft glow of the morning, its insistent grip slackening with each deep breath he took. He could still feel the echo of his sister's embrace, her tear-streaked face framed against the chaos they'd walked through. Those moments, etched in memory, resonated with the essence of what he fought for. Love tattered but intact, duty tainted by darkness but ultimately redeemed. Turning to face the horizon, Alex allowed himself to feel the gentle pull of serenity, the cacophony of New York dimming to a reverent hush as thoughts of the night's revelations settled into clarity. His sister, saved not just by him, but by her own courage and testament to the strength they'd both inherited, wielding love as an unparalleled shield. In the quiet solitude of this urban offering, he began to reconcile the man he was with the man he hoped to become, merging fragments of valor and vulnerability into a whole that was profoundly human. The dichotomy of his life's path cast in stark relief against the brilliance of dawn. Around him, the city awoke, its steely heart beating anew, with each emerging ray of sunlight, shadows retreating in the face of day. Buildings stood stalwart, monuments to grit and tenacity, reflecting the sky's luminescent hues in their glass facades. Above it all, a lone bird soared, wings outstretched wide against the vast expanse, living emblem of freedom and perspective. Watching its flight, Alex found an unexpected smile ghosting across his feature face, a subtle gesture of acceptance that echoed resolutely within. Serenity embraced him, replacing the urgency that had been his constant companion. He felt the weight of his journey lift, leaving behind only the simple truth stitched into the fabric of his resolve, that healing was possible when guarded by love and shepherded by duty. As the world awakened around him, Alex knew the path forward wouldn't be devoid of challenges, but it would be walked with a newfound grace born from trials overcoming, a clarity found in understanding, much like the first light dawning over the city, spilling warmth along every silhouette and calling each shadow home to rest. Later that morning, the quietude of a city adjusting to the day provided a serene backdrop for an overdue reunion. Alex met his sister outside a small cafe that had immediately become a refuge of light and warmth amidst the city's cold and calculated facade. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of roasted coffee beans and freshly baked pastries from within. The clink of porcelain cups against saucers punctuated the gentle hum of conversation around them, a soothing cadence in an often chaotic world. As Alex crossed the street, he found his sister waiting at a small table, her hands cradling a steaming mug, the tendrils of vapor rising like delicate wisps of hope. Her eyes met his, a reflection of shared wounds and the powerful bond that had withstood whirlwind forces. There was a moment suspended in time as they embraced, a silent promise to let go of the past battles, welcoming a future written not by revenge but by love and understanding. The weight of unspoken apologies and unexpressed fears melted away in this minute of heartfelt contact. "You came through for me," she murmured, a tremble of gratitude woven through her words. "For us," Alex corrected softly, his voice steady and sincere. Seated together, they spoke of lost years and recent trials, words threaded through laughter and tears, stitching together fragments of time into a tapestry neither would have believed possible mere weeks ago. The barriers Lorenzo had once exploited were being dismantled gently, brick by brick. Outside, light danced across the sidewalks, refracting off windows and casting colorful splashes against the cafe walls, as if echoing their journey from darkness into light. The shadows that had once clung to them were now whispers, irrelevant in the presence of their renewed connection. As they shared quiet reminiscences, Alex felt the burden of duty transmute into something more profound, as if his dog tags, pressing reassuringly against his chest, were not symbols of an unfulfilled promise, but badges of honor commemorating victory over despair. Their conversation wove between topics both significant and mundane, a symbol of normalcy hard won. Each exchanged glance carried an undercurrent of forgiveness and depth, an understanding that life's battles, while daunting, often hide pathways to resilience and redemption. By the time they parted ways, Alex felt enveloped by a warmth that was neither the sun's doing nor the coffee's. It emanated from within, a quiet culmination of struggle and grace bestowed. Standing at the cafe door, he watched his sister blend back into the stream of life, buoyed by newfound freedom. The city's rhythm thrummed steadily around him, unperturbed by the personal victories achieved within its avenues. In its heart, a mosaic of stories embedded in steel and glass. Alex stood apart, whole again, quietly relishing the transformation born from love's stubborn persistence.
The afternoon sun cast long shadows on the streets of New York, every inch and corner steeped in the rich hues of autumn. As Alex made his way through these familiar avenues, he felt the city breathing, its pulse now steady, no longer an adversary but a companion in the journey toward peace. The last glimmers of gold brushed against his skin as he approached the recruitment center, a sanctuary for many, including himself. The building loomed with the same reassuring presence, a beacon of resilience and unity. Alex paused at its entrance, feeling the weight of the moment, the significance of returning not to enlist but to rediscover purpose. He stepped inside, where memories of service and camaraderie enveloped him like an old, trusted blanket. In the hushed sanctuary of the center, he moved past old photographs lining the walls, portraits of soldiers whose stories intertwined in chapters of bravery and sacrifice. Each face echoed with duty fulfilled, resonating deeply with the medals that rested against his own chest. Alex walked to the corner where the plaque for outreach hung, detailing programs aimed at aiding veterans in navigating life's new battles, those unarmed but equally demanding. It was here he chose to anchor his new passion, helping those like him who sought meaning beyond military service. He let his gaze drift over the room, sunlight filtering through the high windows, casting gentle rainbows across the floor, a testament to how storm and clarity coexisted beautifully, both necessary for growth. One of the staff approached, their expression one of understanding and respect. "Ready to make a difference yet again?" the staff member asked. A question woven with more than curiosity, Macian invitation into the heart of healing. Alex nodded, the smile etched on his face reflecting an ease he hadn't felt in years. "More than ever," he replied, the agreement a soft pledge to the path he envisioned. Leaving the center, Alex found himself walking along familiar streets, Max trotting faithfully at his side. The city unfolded before him, a vibrant tapestry interspersed with shadows familiar, yet anew through the lens of a man transformed. In that quiet moment, he lifted his dog tags, entwining them gently with his fingers, a bridge connecting past to present, a legacy now brimming with purpose and promise. In no rush they meandered toward the edge of the park, where the Hudson River caught and dazzled the late sun's rays on its surface. The dog, sensing the quiet bother of his thoughts, nudged him gently, a soulful reminder of presence, loyalty unbroken. Together they paused at the river's bank as the horizon cradled the sun in its arms, casting long beams away from the vortex of obligation, towards the infinite possibilities of tomorrow. Alex felt peace settle within, the unspoken reassurance that healing lay not in forgetfulness, but in the embrace of all that was, and all that could still be. As the last light of day faded into evening's gentle return, Alex turned away from the river, his path illuminated not by certainty, but by the gentle assurance whispering in the rustle of autumn leaves that the truest compass is love, and the strongest legacy is redemption, both found and given. He walked with Max into the evening, the city's hum a comfort, its shadows a promise of home. What would you do to protect your family? Share your thoughts below.